Just 1 minute ago, a major political wave shook the entire United Kingdom. The government has finally made the announcement millions were waiting for, and it all happened because the public refused to stay silent any longer. A sudden ripple spread across Britain today as the government finally bowed to the rising public pressure. For weeks, people across the country had been demanding clarity, answers, and a firm date for the next general election. Streets were filled with conversations, social media was overloaded with trending tags, and polls showed a sharp rise in frustration among citizens who felt their voices were being ignored. The demand kept growing louder, and the government could no longer afford to wait. The public had reached a point where silence was not an option, and their united voice created a storm that pushed the leadership to act quickly and decisively. Throughout the past month, frustration had been building like a slow, unstoppable wave. From long discussions on television debates to heated arguments in Parliament, the pressure was clear. People wanted change, or at the very least, a chance to choose the leaders who would guide the country forward. Rising living costs, economic uncertainty, and trust issues with the current leadership added fuel to the fire. The demand for elections was no longer just a political conversation, it had become a national sentiment. Everywhere you looked, people were asking the same question: when will the election happen? What happened today was not just an announcement. It felt like the release of a national breath that had been held for far too long. Newsrooms across the UK suddenly lit up, political analysts jumped into action, and the entire media landscape shifted within seconds. This wasn't just another press briefing. This was the moment that millions had been waiting for. A moment where the government finally stepped forward and spoke directly to the people, acknowledging the immense pressure coming from every corner of the country. The announcement came during a short, unexpected statement from the government's spokesperson. Reporters were not prepared for something this big. Cameras were barely set when the spokesperson stepped up to the podium, cleared their throat, and delivered the message that instantly captured the world's attention. In that brief moment, the political atmosphere changed completely. A date was given, a confirmation was made. The UK general election was officially announced just 1 minute ago. This sudden decision did not come out of nowhere. For weeks, pressure had been mounting on the Prime Minister to respond to the growing public unrest. Protests outside government buildings were gaining momentum. Online campaigns were trending daily. Even within the ruling party, whispers of internal pressure had started surfacing. Many party members felt that delaying the election was only making the situation worse. It became clear that continuing the silence would only deepen the frustration among the people. Across the nation, communities felt disconnected from the decisions being made in the capital. Ordinary citizens, office workers, shopkeepers, students and families wanted a chance to have their say, and today their collective voice finally reached the heart of government. The announcement was not simply a political move, it was a response to the overwhelming demand for action, clarity and leadership. This shift in tone from the government showed that public opinion had become impossible to ignore. Moments after the announcement, reactions started pouring in from every part of the country. Some people said this was long overdue. Others expressed relief that the uncertainty was finally over. And many believed that this election could change the direction of the UK entirely. But one thing was clear. Today's news marked the beginning of a new chapter. One that would shape the political future of the country in ways no one could fully predict yet. The next steps will unfold quickly. Parties will now begin preparing their campaigns, sharpening their plans, and reaching out to voters. But before all the political noise begins, today's moment stands as a reminder of something powerful. It shows how the voice of the public, when united, can push even the strongest institutions to respond. The announcement made just 1 minute ago is proof that democracy still belongs to the people, and today the people made their voice impossible to ignore. The moments following the announcement sent a powerful shock across the political landscape of the United Kingdom. As the news broke, every major newsroom shifted into rapid coverage mode. Analysts who had been predicting delays were suddenly forced to rewrite their assessments. The unexpected timing of the announcement created an atmosphere of urgency, almost as if the entire nation had been pushed into a new phase within seconds. This wasn't a carefully planned rollout. The timing made it very clear that the government was responding directly to the growing public heat. For many observers, the speed of this decision was a sign of how serious the pressure had become behind the scenes. Over the last few days especially, reports began emerging that public frustration had reached a breaking point. Town hall meetings were filled with questions that leaders struggled to answer. Call-in radio programmes were flooded with comments from people demanding change. Even supporters of the government admitted that the silence had gone on too long. The public wanted clarity, certainty, and a voice in choosing what direction the country should take next. Because of this, the call for elections was no longer only a political demand. It had turned into a powerful emotional response from millions of people who felt disconnected from national decisions. Inside government circles, today's decision did not come easily. According to early reports, internal discussions had grown tense in recent weeks. Advisors were arguing over the best timing, party leaders were reviewing polling data, and pressure from the opposition was getting stronger with each passing day. The government initially tried to hold back, hoping to stabilise public sentiment before making any big moves, but the growing dissatisfaction outside Parliament made it clear that waiting any longer would only make the situation worse. The leadership realised that announcing the election was the only way to ease the rising tension. With the announcement now made, the nation has entered a phase of political transformation. This shift is not just about the date of an election, it is about the public reclaiming its influence in national decisions. For the first time in months, a sense of movement can be felt. People who felt unheard are now more alert, ready to observe the promises, actions and mistakes of every political party. The coming weeks will be filled with debates, interviews, campaign launches, and countless attempts by leaders to win the trust of the nation. But everything begins with this moment, the moment the government stepped forward and acknowledged that the people were demanding change. As public responses continue to pour in, a clear pattern is starting to form. Many citizens believe this election could shift the country's direction in ways not seen in years. Some see it as a chance to rebuild trust in leadership. Others view it as an opportunity to challenge long-standing issues that have been ignored for too long. And while reactions differ, almost everyone agrees that this announcement signals the beginning of a very intense political season, one that will determine how the UK moves forward in uncertain times. Social media platforms exploded within minutes of the announcement. Hashtags demanding elections quickly turned into celebration tags, breaking news tags, and political prediction threads. Influencers, analysts, and everyday citizens all began sharing their reactions, creating a digital wave of excitement and debate. Many posts described the announcement as a victory for public pressure, while others called it a necessary move to restore stability. But even with mixed opinions, one thing was clear: people were talking, engaging, and preparing for what comes next. This sudden burst of national conversation shows just how deeply the announcement has touched the public. People who normally do not follow politics are now paying attention. Families are discussing the future at dinner tables. Workers are sharing opinions during coffee breaks. Students are talking about leadership and change. The general election has instantly become the most important national event on everyone's mind. And with this shift, the question now moves from when will the election happen to what will the outcome be. The countdown has officially begun, and every political party knows that the window of opportunity is small. The government's surprising announcement has changed the game entirely. Strategies will have to be rewritten. Campaigns will have to intensify. Leaders will have to step forward and face the public with clear answers, strong promises, and real plans. This marks the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter written not by political leaders, but by the public who demanded action. The next section will explore what triggered the government to move so suddenly and how internal and external pressures created one of the most unexpected political moments. In the hours leading up to the announcement, several hidden factors were quietly building pressure behind the scenes. While the public demand was loud and visible, what truly pushed the government to move so suddenly were the internal cracks forming within the political structure itself. Advisors close to the leadership had been warning that waiting any longer could turn public frustration into a national crisis. Behind closed doors, the ruling party was facing tough conversations that revealed growing concerns about trust, stability, and control. These private tensions were never shown on camera, but they played a critical role in today's unexpected decision. For the past few weeks, reports suggest that ministers were receiving daily updates about public sentiment, and each update showed the same pattern. Confidence in leadership was slipping fast. Opinion polls, which once showed stable support, were now pointing toward unpredictable outcomes. Economic worries, rising household pressures, and social debates added even more weight. Every time a new poll was released, the ruling party found itself under sharper scrutiny. Advisers knew that ignoring the public demand for elections could cause even more damage, especially as dissatisfaction began turning into open criticism. Inside Parliament, opposition parties had been intensifying their pressure as well. They questioned delays, demanded answers, and accused the government of avoiding accountability. Speeches from opposition leaders grew more direct, calling the delay undemocratic and unfair to the people. This created a political storm that was getting harder for the government to ignore. Even neutral members of Parliament began urging the leadership to provide some clarity. The government found itself surrounded on all sides, public frustration on the outside, political pressure from within, and rising internal doubts among its own members. But the turning point came from a series of unexpected internal warnings. Senior advisers reportedly told the leadership that holding off the election announcement could severely affect the party's image for years to come. They feared that public anger might escalate, creating an environment in which the ruling party could lose control of the narrative entirely. According to early insider reports, the leadership realised that delaying the election was no longer a strategic choice. It had become a serious risk. Stability could only be restored through transparency, and transparency meant giving the public what they were asking for. Another major factor was the sharp rise in nationwide discussions. Every radio show, political programme and news channel was questioning the silence from the government. This constant spotlight became too heavy to ignore. Even international media began reporting on the delay, adding pressure in a way that made the government appear indecisive on the global stage. The leadership needed to regain control of the conversation, and the only way to do that was by making the announcement swiftly and decisively. This was not just about politics, it was about restoring public confidence at a time when the nation felt uncertain. The UK has recently faced difficult years filled with economic challenges, policy debates, and social divisions. People wanted direction, they wanted clarity, and they wanted leadership that was willing to respond to their concerns. The government's sudden announcement was a step toward rebuilding that trust, even if it meant facing tough questions in the coming weeks. What made today's moment so striking is that it did not follow the usual political pattern. There were no long hints, no slow build-up, and no controlled leaks. Instead, the decision came quickly, almost abruptly, showing just how urgent the situation had become. The announcement was less of a strategic reveal and more of a necessary response, a sign that the pressure had reached a point where waiting was no longer an option. Political experts are now saying that this may be one of the most reactive election decisions in recent UK history. It reflects a powerful message when public frustration, political pressure and internal warnings reach the same boiling point. Even the government must step back and listen. Today's announcement proves that the voice of the people is still strong enough to shift the direction of national politics. As the dust begins to settle, the focus now shifts toward what lies ahead. Parties are scrambling, strategies are being rewritten, and leaders are preparing to face a highly alert and emotionally charged public. The stage is set for one of the most intense election seasons the UK has seen in years. The announcement may have lasted only a few moments, but its impact is already shaping the next phase of the United Kingdom's political journey. As the nation steps into election mode, every political party is now racing against time, preparing to confront the public in one of the most closely watched campaigns in recent years. The shift from uncertainty to clarity has changed everything. Strategies, alliances, promises, and public expectations. From this point forward, every move made by politicians will be under intense scrutiny because the people are paying attention more than ever before. Within minutes of the announcement, party headquarters across the country went into full activation. Campaign teams scrambled to finalise their first statements, communication directors prepared rapid responses, and leaders began discussing their key messages. The sudden timing of the election means that no one has the luxury of moving slowly. Every party must now present clear plans on issues that matter deeply to the public: cost of living, healthcare, national stability, employment, education, and the everyday concerns of ordinary citizens. The next several weeks will not just test political strength, but also how well leaders can connect with people on the ground. Meanwhile, voters themselves find their role growing more significant than ever. After months of waiting for clarity, they now have the opportunity to shape the future direction of the country. The public knows that their vote carries weight, especially in a political environment where trust has become fragile. Many citizens believe this election is not just a routine exercise, it is a chance to reset priorities, rebuild confidence, and demand accountability from those in power. The atmosphere feels charged, almost electric, as people begin assessing the choices ahead. The conversation has already shifted from frustration to curiosity. People are asking what each party will bring to the table. Will new leadership emerge? Will long-standing promises finally be fulfilled? Will fresh ideas rise to the surface? These questions will dominate national discussions as the countdown begins. Communities that felt ignored or unheard now expect real plans, not vague statements. Voters want leaders who communicate openly and stand firm on their promises. The public mood makes one thing clear: this will not be a campaign where empty words go unnoticed. In this fast-changing environment, the media will play a crucial role. Every debate, interview and public appearance will be broadcast, analysed and shared across platforms. Political commentators are predicting a highly competitive race as parties attempt to regain lost trust or build new support. Social media, too, is expected to shape voter opinion dramatically. Already, discussions and debates have begun trending, with people actively sharing their expectations and concerns. This digital wave will only grow stronger as the election gets closer. But despite the excitement, there is also a sense of caution. Many citizens are aware that campaigns often bring promises that do not always match outcomes. This time, the public wants more than speeches. They want clear steps, realistic plans, and transparent intentions. As the election approaches, leaders will have to prove that they understand the challenges faced by ordinary people. They must show that they can guide the country through uncertain times with stability, honesty, and strength. The government's sudden announcement has set all of this into motion. What began as public pressure has now become a national mission. The people demanded a voice, and now they have been given the moment they were waiting for. The responsibility rests not only on the leaders who will campaign across the country, but also on the voters who will decide the nation's direction. Every vote will matter. Every decision will count. In the coming weeks, rallies will fill the streets, debates will dominate screens, and the political noise will grow louder. But beneath it all, one message remains clear. This election is the direct result of public power. The public spoke, the government listened, and now the entire nation is preparing for a turning point that could redefine the future.